In today's episode of Today in World War II, January 24th, the Czechs established their own branch, the French army. The British continued their counteroffensive in East Africa. The Japanese threatened immediate execution for anybody that destroys their oil fields in Indonesia. Churchill and Roosevelt at the Casablanca Conference announced the unconditional surrender policy of any Axis power. And finally, a British private wins the Victoria Cross for great heroism at the Anzio invasion in Italy. Let's get started. Okay, so on January 24th, 1940, the Czechoslovakian branch of the French army was established. Um, you probably know the sad story of Czechoslovakia. It was handed over on a silver plate by France and Italy, Great Britain, in 38, as a forlorn hope that somehow Hitler's lust for land and power would be sated if they gave up, if they forced the Czechs to give up the mountainous part of Sudetenland, which is where they might have had a chance to contain the German invasion. But when you took away that natural territory they could defend in mountainous areas, there was no way that was going to happen. Well, a lot of Czechs did not roll over and say that's it. We're just going to submit. Many Czechs fled to the west to continue the fight. A lot of soldiers, awful lot of pilots. And I would say that, I've mentioned in previous videos that the Poles don't get enough credit for their contribution to the defeat of Nazism in World War II. The Czechs also don't. The Czechs were very, very good and they fought and a lot of pilots. And let me tell you something. I don't think that the Brits would have won the Battle of Britain if they did not have the Poles and the Czechs pilots they're flying because they really needed the help and they needed the numbers, and these were trained fighter pilots. These were not newbies. And I just want to say that I just want to use this announcement of the establishment of the Czechoslovakian branch of the French army just as a way to delve into this a little bit more deeply so you can understand just how great a contribution they made to the cause. And unfortunately, when the war was over, they couldn't go back home because it was taken over by the Soviets and it was in their sphere of influence and under a communist regime until the 90s. So just think about that. Uh, that's sad. But what's also not sad, actually a joyous occasion will be if you click that subscribe button and click on the bell that allows you to get notifications from YouTube that you that I've dropped their video, because it's a joyous occasion to learn more and more about World War II if you're a nut like I am, right? So do that and that'll be great. Okay, on January 24th, 1941, British forces in Kenya continued their counteroffensive in East Africa against the Italians by attacking their colony in Italian Somaliland. A lot of people don't know that in the North African campaign, it wasn't just Egypt and Libya and then the French North Africa and Tunisia. There was a whole separate war being fought in East Africa because that's where you had the British colony, you had Tanzania and you had Kenya, and we all know about that. The lions are there, the Lion King, the Serengeti Plains and everything. But you just go a little bit north of that, and you've got you've got Somalia now. You've got the Horn of Africa, you've got Ethiopia, you've got Eritrea. All those areas were Italian colonies. And remember that Mussolini, when he declared war on Great Britain after the Brits had pretty much got their butts handed to them in France, he thought it would be easy pickings. Yes, he did invade, his forces did invade from Libya into Egypt. And rightly so, a lot of attention's paid to that because the Suez Canal was very, very vulnerable at the time, and it was until the Germans were finally defeated in 1943. But there was a whole another invasion. Mussolini sent forces from Somaliland, Somalia, into Kenya, and he fully wanted to go in and kick the Brits out of East Africa. Well, and right now, on January 24th, 1941, the Brits from Kenya started their counteroffensive into East Africa, and that took a while, but they were eventually able to subdue and defeat the Italians in the East African campaign. Uh, when you had East Africa there, you had them. I mean, the Suez Canal was also under threat because the Italians could and did launch airstrikes against British shipping through the Suez Canal. So they need to clear them out as well. So it was very I would say relatively unknown compared to all the attention that's paid to the North African campaign in Libya and Egypt and Tunisia and so on and so forth. Um, what's also relatively unknown and not paid much attention to is the fact that you need to like every single video I do. If you watch a video, just get in the habit, like it, and then go the extra mile, take that extra step, and leave a comment, please. Now, why would a grown man like me with dignity and self-respect abase myself and humiliate myself in front of you because I want, for likes and comments? Because my goal is to grow this channel. And the way to do that is to give the algorithm what it wants. It wants engagement, it wants likes, and it wants comments. So if you could do that for me, I would really appreciate it. Okay, so on January 24th, 1942, this is the invasion of the Japanese invasion of the Dutch East Indies. Nowadays it's Indonesia, was continuing, and this was controlled by the Dutch. And the Dutch, plucky Dutch, I tell you, they were not they were going to be defeated, and they knew they were going to be defeated because there's no way in the world they could stand up against the Japanese. However, they were causing the Japanese to pay a heavy price, and they were also making sure that all their oil wells were destroyed. They did a scorched earth campaign. They said, okay, Japanese, you want to come in and you want to take our oil? Well, you're going to have to repair everything. The Japanese were very upset about that, and they announced an ultimatum to the Dutch saying, look, we will execute anybody. If you keep destroying oil wells, we're going to execute you. Um, to their credit, the Dutch basically just said, they kept doing it. Okay. And in the same vein, January 24th, 1942, the Dutch destroyed the oil fields. They were more along the coast. They retreated inland and they took up positions around the Samarinda 2 airfield. Now the Japanese did land, they did attack, they destroyed, they seized the destroyed refineries. Now an American task force, a naval task force, did ambush the invasion force and sank a number of transports, but they didn't have the power to stop them in their tracks. Eventually, Japanese, they took the loss, they took the punch, and they went ahead and occupied, Balikpapan, and, they got what they wanted, but it was not just a rollover on the Dutch part or the Americans or the British for that matter. They fought. It was a losing battle. On January 24th, 1943, at the Casablanca Conference, the biggest takeaway from that conference between Roosevelt and Churchill was they announced the policy that there would only be unconditional surrender for the Axis powers, for Germany and for Italy. There would be no negotiated surrender. That is a little bit controversial. Revisionist history, historians like to talk about, well, that cut the knees out from under the German resistance. I reject that because the German resistance really didn't do much anyway, except for a few aborted assassination attempts and the one that didn't work in 44. For the most part, the German resistance was a pipe dream. So I don't think that was a bad thing. But hey, I'm just some guy, right? But I'm giving you my opinion because this is my YouTube channel, right? So that was the biggest takeaway from this conference was the unconditional surrender of um, Germany, and Italy. Okay, in January 24th, 1944. A British private, George Mitchell, received the Victoria Cross for heroism above and beyond the call of duty. What did he do? Well, he charged a machine gun nest that was killing his comrades. He killed the crew himself, the machine gun crew himself. Then he was that was enough for him. He attacked another machine gun nest by himself. He killed six other Germans and took 12 prisoner. And then, unfortunately, what happened was one of the prisoners that he had surrendered picked up a rifle and shot and killed him. I hope that his comrades killed that German for that, but I don't know if he did or not. But anyway, because of that amazing valor, amazing bravery, he received the Victoria Cross. So on that note, I will stop this video for today and say thank you for watching, and I can't wait to get you another video tomorrow.